Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to class today. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording, I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for watching this stream. Today's just going to be our introductory live stream. It's just going to be our very first one. So we're just going to go through the Begin Here module in a little bit more depth, kind of talk about the purpose of this course in just a little more depth, right? So that we can, progress through the semester and have a good fall. But this is our web design course. And as I mentioned in the intro video that I sent you all in the announcements, this is sort of a design-specific course, right? Like there's no other course in the entire program that really focuses on sort of the backing theory behind design principles, which is why I've created this course to be this sort of way. Right, so throughout this course, we talk about the design process, the things we go through, what it means to design something in general, right? How we approach system design, how we approach site design, and how we make some cool websites. Right, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do, right? One of the things that we say that, a person who takes this program would be good at doing right out of the box is being a webmaster or web designer / developer for a company. And to be able to create somebody's website, you need to know a little bit about how design works and how to make something look the way that it should look. So we don't really talk a whole bunch about code in this class. We do get a little bit into code, right? When we get into typography, we'll talk about how to add web fonts to things and how to host your own web fonts and all that kind of stuff. We do a little more with accessibility code. We do a little more with interactivity code. Right, so we do a little bit of advanced coding throughout this course, but primarily we leave all the learning of code to things like CTI 110, Web 115, and Web 215. So we won't be doing a whole bunch of programming in this particular course. This is more design theory and design practice, right? So we'll be putting things into practice that, we learned the foundations of previously, or we have some other kind of foundation of. So it will help you to have a little bit of knowledge of HTML and CSS. But again, just as some of the other classes, it's not really required. It might just take you a little longer to kind of work on things as we progress than it would have otherwise. But what I'd like to talk about today is I'd like to just go through the Begin Here module in just a little bit more depth. I'll go through everything just kind of piece by piece, just so we're all clear about what we need to do and what our expectations are of one another, right? Since this is an upper level class, and I think pretty much everybody's had a class with me before. Might be one or two of you who haven't, but especially those of you who have, you know how I operate. I don't really change it a whole lot. So this will give you a good idea of what we'll be doing for the rest of the semester. And we'll also look at Module 1 just a little bit so we can kind of explain how the different modules work. But if we go into the Begin Here module, right, this is where we all start. That's what's due tomorrow, is this Begin Here module. We can just kind of scroll down through here and go through our different elements in our Begin Here module. This orientation here that I made specially for this semester is just kind of a condensed version of what I'll be talking about today. Let me switch over to the full screen view so you can all see this just a little bit better. But as we go down, the first thing we hit is our enrollment verification activity. You remember that you'll want to complete this. You'll want to complete this as we kind of go through, right? This is due by, I need this done by September the 6th, right? But it's a part of this Begin Here module, which is due tomorrow. So if you go ahead and get it done now, then you won't have to worry about it anymore. But you do have until the 6th to really do this. And it's a single question quiz. You go on there. It basically asks you, it says by selecting yes, you're verifying your enrollment in this course and you'll be an active participant, and also that you promise not to cheat, basically. So you select yes, your enrollment's verified, you get to stay in the course. If you select no, or you don't complete this by the end of the day on September 6th, you will be administratively withdrawn from the course. I will have to drop you. So if you want to stay in and keep your degree progress going on at the right pace, you'll want to make sure that you'll do this as soon as possible. The next thing that we have here is our getting started. Most of this stuff here is stuff that you all are probably familiar with, right? I think from looking through the roster, I think everybody's at least taken a course, a Blackboard course here at CCC before, even if they haven't taken one of mine. But if you need a refresher on these different things, like how to find the syllabus, how to find the instructor contacts, how to get tutoring, and all that kind of fun stuff, it's all here for you. Like if I were, wonder how to get to my syllabus, there's this syllabus section here. Unmute my desktop audio so you can actually hear it. But it just has a short video showing you how to click the link for the syllabus.
Here at Cleveland Community College, your syllabus is only a click away.
Right, so it actually shows you how to get to your syllabus there, and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you need that, it's there for you. If you don't, it's not. You don't have to use it, but you don't have to read it. But it's good to have for reference. Here's our syllabus. Right, a syllabus is basically a contract between me and you. Right, so it sets expectations of me, and I have expectations of you, so we have expectations of one another out of the syllabus. The course description here is that this course introduces intermediate to advanced web design techniques. Right, so we are talking specifically about web design techniques in this course, and topics include customer expectations. Right, we have 2 whole books that we'll be reading about customer expectations. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Advanced markup languages. Advanced markup language. I just gave you some of the some indications of some of the advanced markup language stuff that we'll be doing. Multimedia technologies. We have in our typography, in our interactivity, in various other places. We'll be looking at a little bit at how we integrate multimedia technologies and things of that nature. The biggest one here is the next one, which is usability. All right, in just your own study of web design and web development, you might have heard of the term UX, or user experience design. And that's a lot of what this course revolves around, is this idea of what makes websites usable. And so it's great to have a pretty website, right? Like having a pretty website's one thing, and having a pretty website does add to usability, which is something that we'll talk about as we kind of progress. But having a pretty website is not the most important thing about a website. Your website needs to be usable. It needs to be functional, right? And so that's going to be a big portion of how we approach our design techniques and topics this semester. We also talk about the evaluation of web design. We look at heuristic evaluation, which we talk about later on in the course, and all these different sorts of ways that we can evaluate web design, both from our perspective as designers and how we can evaluate designs that we are working on from the perspective of our users. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. And again, this description comes from the state of North Carolina. We're kind of allowed to take that description and go with it in whatever direction we feel like we need to go. And one of the interesting things is that a lot of these descriptions were written, way back in like 2004, 2006, even for technology classes. Right, just out of interest, just because I've had my curiosity piqued on the live stream here. Let me see when the last time this description was updated was, or when this particular description was written. I'll just jump into the combined course library here and dig it up. Web Technologies, Web 210. So that's an old definition. Oh wow, this course description was actually written. It's newer than I thought. This one was written in 2008. So it's only 14 years old instead of 16 years old like I thought it was. Which, that's pretty nice. There is a new one that's coming on the books for next year, but I think even that one is the same description. It just has a different number of credits to it. Let me check it out. Yep, it's the exact same description from 2008. It just has, and we've already updated it here. It's 3 lab hours instead of 2 lab hours like it was back in 2006. Everything else is the same. So the description of the web design class has been the same description from the state of North Carolina since 2008. So it's our responsibility as instructors to make sure you get up-to-date material. And I know the material that we teach here is up-to-date, and I'll tell you why in just a few moments. But we have these books here that we use. Design is a Job and You're My Favorite Client by Mike Montero. Mike Montero is an active web designer. He is the owner of Mule Design. We'll drag their website over here for you. Mule Design. There are the books that you're reading this semester. Design is a Job and You Are My Favorite Client. He is a bit of an outspoken figure, right? Like, he is a public guy. He has a lot of opinions. He expresses them on the internet. Some of them you might agree with. Some of them you might disagree with. Whether you agree with his opinions or not, that doesn't really change the value that comes behind these 2 books that we're going to be reading this semester. Design is a Job and You're My Favorite Client. You know, this speaks to this whole customer expectations piece that we have here in our description. And it helps us to set up expectations of ourselves as we are designing, of how we should present ourselves to a client, and of the relationship we should have with a client. So while little bitty opinions that he might have that are a part of the work you might disagree with, let's be adults about it and let's not let it overshadow the meaning of the whole thing. Right? That's something you might notice as you go through. So it's going to be, at the end of the day, you know, we're college students, we're professionals, we're adults. We're going to be okay. We can handle it. Right? The other thing that we have here is The Design of Everyday Things. That's the other book we'll be reading this semester. This was written by Don Norman. And this is sort of, you know, in air quotes, right? You can't see my fingers right now, but I'm doing that whole air quotes thing. It's sort of the Bible for designers, right? And, you know, this kind of reaches out to every area of design. Right? We talk about system design. We talk about getting a picture of the entire system. A lot of the things that the book talks about kind of puts it into a frame of reference with industrial design, product design, right? It's a lamp, it's a blender, it's whatever it is. How do we design these objects? But once we look at it through the lens of web design, we see that, these same concepts apply to web designers, and that's a good portion of what we kind of discuss as we're reading this book here. Is how these concepts relate to web design specifically. And so these are they're just three regular books, right? Like, I don't really like to have textbooks for my classes if I can avoid it. But these aren't textbooks. These are just kind of regular books. They're also fairly cheap, or they should be fairly cheap. I'm sure the bookstore marks them up a fair bit, right? Like, ideally, you could probably get all three of these books for around $50 if you go looking for them in the right place, and that's all new, right? You could probably find them used for even cheaper. So you can get your hands on these things pretty easily. A lot of this is just boilerplate, so we won't go over like the technology stuff here. The SLOs, these are the things that you'll know by the end of the semester, or that you'll be able to do by the end of the semester. One is to create web pages using HTML5 and CSS, following industry standard web design techniques. Now, how do I know that we're following industry standard web design techniques? Well, over the course of the past year, I've had a front row seat to it. Right here at Cleveland Community College, we're getting our website redesigned. We were able to contract out a very big, very well-renowned website design and development firm to create our website for us. And I've been on the committee that is, overseeing the work. And the process that they followed is the exact same process that I outline in the course as to how we work through a website in design and development, right? No changes whatsoever. So I've seen firsthand one of the most well-renowned web development firms in the country, one of the most well-renowned web design firms in the country, use the same techniques and same best practices and same theory that I talk about in this course, and I've watched them do it for the past year. So this is validated. Everything that we teach in this course, everything's really great. So I hope you all can kind of get that out of it. It's pretty good stuff. Design websites to meet strategic goals, right? If we're meeting strategic goals, we need to have a plan, right? We're going to create accessible websites. Accessibility is important. We teach accessibility in 3 different classes. We'll talk more about the design side of accessibility in this class. Explain the business of web design. And explain the basics of user experience theory. By the end of it, you'll have all of this. This is your grade weighting here. There are some quizzes here and there. There aren't as many quizzes in this course, but there are some here and there. Quizzes are worth 15%. Your labs are worth the bulk of the grade weighting in this course. They're worth 45%. Your final project, which we'll talk about in just a bit, is worth 20%. Your final exam is worth 15%. And attendance and participation, you get 5% just for participating and doing what you need to do. Here are our due dates. It's in our course schedule here. That's also reflected in the pacing guide in the Begin Here module. I'm going to try to put these dates in some other places too when I get a little bit of time. Right, but these are the dates when modules will be assigned and when they will be due for the entire semester, so we know right now when everything's going to be due. You might want to take a picture of this or write it down or take a screenshot of it or whatever. Keep it somewhere close at hand. Right? Just so you can have it. And everything else is pretty much boilerplate that I'll let you read on your own time. Here's my instructor information. This has my student hours, which is also in my syllabus there. Student hours are times when I am available to you, when I will definitely be in my office or be somewhere easy to be found and able to answer questions. And you can see Monday through Wednesday, my student hour is from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. I'll typically be in my office for those if you need to contact me or you want to stop by. On Thursdays, from 10:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., we're having our study hall. And it's going to be in room 3200 in Paxoy. I will be in there. Unless I need to step out to the restroom or something like that, right? I'll be in there waiting on, anybody who wants to show up, ask questions, get help, get some individual attention, whatever you need, all day long on Thursday, right? From 10:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. If you need to contact me at any time outside of these hours, right? I'm best with email. Right? For those of you who have had me in the past, you know that when you send me an email, I get you a reply pretty quick. Another option is Microsoft Teams. I like these two methods primarily because I have them around me all the time, right? Regardless of where I am, if I have my phone on me or if I'm near a computer, I have access to my email and I have access to my Teams. I don't necessarily always have access to my office phone. Right? I could be in a meeting, I could be working somewhere else, I could be teaching class. But if you send me an email or you send me a Teams message, I will see it and I will respond to it as soon as possible. And if we need to meet in person outside of these times, you just let me know and I'll do the best that I can to schedule an appointment for you. If you've never used Teams before, this video right here walks you through how to access it. Here's that pacing guide again that's from the syllabus. It's the same thing here. A thing to point out here is that, we want things by noon on the last day. That's the final exam and the final project there. By noon on the last day of class. Here's the online class. It's at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. That's what we're doing right now. A little bit other course information here. Just to let you read it at your own leisure. A little bit of information about, being successful in online classes. That's here for your own, to read through at your own leisure. And then finally, the final two things here are the other assignments for your Begin Here module, which is the discussion board. Just because, it's an online class doesn't mean you get out of introducing yourself. And the orientation quiz. So that's all for the Begin Here module. Now, your final project is not due until noon on December the 12th, but your final project is assigned to you already, right? It's assigned to you today. Because one of the things that we have here with our final project is that we have different milestones that you need to do along the way. Right? So here in Module 2, for example, you are assigned Phase 1. Now it says here this assignment will be due with Module 4. You will need to submit your user analysis that you created and your essay. There will be a place for you to turn this in inside Module 4. So you start it here in Module 2 when we learn about user analyses and doing surveying and all this kind of fun stuff. And then in Module 4, there's a place for you to turn it in. Right? Submit Phase 1 of your final project here. Phase 1 was assigned to you. So you're doing things for your final project all semester long. Your final project is simply building a website of your choice. Right? You're going to choose a problem that you think needs to be solved with a website. And you're going to build a website that does that. Now you can see here that along with your paper, you have along with your website, there is a paper that is 10 to 15 pages long. But, like, that sounds like a lot, but that includes the stuff you did in phase 1, right, which is a bunch of charts and graphs and all the stuff that you did there. The things that you did in phase 2, which includes wireframes and other parts of the analysis, and a few new things. Right? So by the time you get to the end, after phase 1 and phase 2, you'll already have like 8 pages done, probably. Maybe even more than that. Just padding it out with charts and graphs and all this other kind of fun stuff. Right? So it sounds like a lot when I say 10 to 15 pages, but it's really not that much. At the end, right, you have 14 weeks to work on it. You have these different milestones to submit at different times. And when you do the milestones, that also prepares you for this final. Right, so it's not as big of a deal. But, it's a website of your choosing. It has a home page, 2 sub-pages, some kind of navigation that will allow your user to go between the pages and follow the best practices that we've done, that we do throughout the semester. So it doesn't have to 100% work the way you might intend it to, outside of the requirements that are here. But so it's not a but we just don't want it. It's not as bad as it seems. Right? Pretty easy overall, especially by the time we get to the end. You're just you're figuring out a problem, and you're solving it with a 3-page website that is designed using what we're going to be talking about in class. So if we look through the modules, that'll be the last thing that we talk about today. If we look through the modules, we see that this course is laid out just a little bit differently than I lay out a lot of my other courses, just because this course is kind of broken into different segments. We kind of break it into a technical segment, a business segment, and a UX segment. Right? So for example, here in Module 1, our technical segment is this HTML and CSS refresh bootcamp. Right? It's just for us to kind of shake the rust off from the summer, build an HTML and CSS website just to kind of get our foothold. This is the same bootcamp that you see in the other modules. The only difference is that the site that you're making is a different site. Right? This is for Dave's computer repair instead of the esports team site or whatever, I don't remember all the bootcamp websites right off the top of my head, but yeah, it's the same site. You're just making a different one that looks different with a different logo. Right? This is just to get get you some practice. The more you practice, the more you repeat things, the more you do things, the better you'll get at this stuff. But every single one of these subsections has information in it, and they may or may not have assignments in it, right? But you'll notice that I put the assignments here in the sections. We have graded items. So you'll see that this one does, these typically do as well, right? Because it's just about the book. So all of these little pieces will have different assignments in them. So my suggestion is to just work through them like modules one at a time. Right? So when I start module 1 next week, or really on Friday, I'll go here. I'll work through the HTML and CSS bootcamp just like it was a regular module in a regular course. Read everything, watch everything. Get to the end, do the lab, submit it. Then go back to module 1 and do this segment, the What is UX segment, on its own. Right? Go through, read everything, watch everything. And do the assignment, which here is the discussion board. And then finally, the design is a job chapter. Read and complete. And it's the same for every module, right? Like if we look in Module 2, we have a design of everyday things section. We have a UX design section, which also has our technical stuff in it for this module, and a business section. Now there are assignments that are outside of any of these subsections, right? And they encompass, like here we have our Module 1 quiz. It encompasses things from every section. Right? So based on what you learn from your reading, based on what you learn from the UX, you answer this quiz. And the quizzes here are different as well. Right? This class in particular, I treat more like a university class than any of the other classes that I teach. Right? This class has open-ended quiz questions. Right? All the quizzes are open-ended. You get asked one question and you write a short essay that answers that question. Everything else is project-based. Right? Your final exam is also open-ended. With 2 short essays. So this is more like a university class than any of the other classes that I teach. I do think it's a fun class. Right? We talk about a lot of theory subjects, a lot of things that have to do with the way that people think and the way that people approach things and interact with things. And I hope you all have a good time with these topics. And ideally, we'd like to be able to see at least small changes in the decisions that you make in creating websites from this, HTML and CSS refresh bootcamp that we'll be doing next week through your final project. We'll see decisions changing. And so really that's all that I have for you for today. Don't forget your Begin Here modules due tomorrow. We'll start Module 1 after that. So next week we'll be talking about Module 1 material. I'll turn the music back on, hang out and chat for a couple minutes just in case anybody who is here with me live has any questions. Otherwise, if you're watching this elsewhere and you have some questions, feel free to send me an email or a Teams message. That's all that I have for you for today, though. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.